Right, okay, so let's jump in. Let's talk about Octopus Deploy. What is Octopus Deploy? Well, what isn't it really? It's an automated deployment tool that can be for your .NET Core, Java packages, your MySQL databases, your MS SQL databases, infrastructure provisioning through ARM templates using runbooks or deployment steps. It deploys effectively anything. We've done a webinar recently on Kubernetes as well. You can use it to promote releases between different environments. So that's from dev to test to pre-prod, and everything in between. One of the key benefits is you generally should only use one package with your deployment. And what this does do is it means it's repeatable, reliable, and consistent, because it's the same deployment process that you're using through the entire environment stack. So Octopus is API first. So anything you can do within the user interface, you can also do over the API. It comes in two different flavors. You've got Cloud, which is hosted in 3 separate regions across the world, in Australia, Europe, and the US. And you also have on-premise as well. On-premise is still very popular. Yeah, you can do that or host it on your own cloud provider. Fun fact about Octopus is that roughly 1 in 10 deployments that go to Azure happens via Octopus. Another fun fact is that 50% of all deployments that happen to Azure actually go directly from Visual Studio. I think it was Damien Brady who said, friends don't let other friends right-click deploy. So yeah, please stop doing that. And the good thing is we have a free starter edition that's in cloud or on premises. You can have up to 10 deployment targets, which should be free for small teams. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Raygun.
Awesome. So what is Raygun? Raygun is a suite of error and performance monitoring tools that lets you see a bird's eye view of the performance and errors that are happening throughout your application. All the way down to any microservices and server-side code that you have, all the way up to the client-side front end. We have various integrations, including our good friends Octopus, as well as GitHub, Jira, Slack, and many more. We also have automated deployment tracking. We'll talk about this more later on, but the basic idea is when you deploy with Octopus, we automatically track that deployment and give you statistics about, hey, did any errors come through, or was it a bad deployment, etc. We also have a 14-day free trial. Our pricing starts from $8 per month, so a really cheap price point to get in. It's really easy to set up, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So that does take me into a nice my slide. Next slide quite nicely. This is the software development lifecycle. You normally find that you start with a feature, and it could well be a performance issue. You then write the code, you then build it on something like Azure DevOps or TeamCity, Jenkins. Then it goes into test phase. Please write some tests for your code. At that point, this is where Octopus comes in. Octopus comes in, you can then create the release, you then do the deployment. At that point, then you come into the operate phase, and this is where Octopus and Raygun really come into their own.
Yeah, I really like this image because this is exactly what we do at Raygun. We use Octopus Deploy for our deployments, and then even in our own workflow, we then go into Raygun and monitor those deployments. Were they good? Were there any regressions, errors, performance impacts? So yeah, great image.
No, it's good. It's good. It's fun to see you guys using Octopus and Raygun. So we're kind of like showing what you guys do in production, because you use Raygun to monitor Raygun deployments, don't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, to be honest, we use with cloud. It's hosted on AKS. We use Octopus to deploy Octopus. You know how much now in IT we love some layers. So yeah, you've got to love a bit of dog food. So let's jump in and it's demo time. So what I just want you to do is start quickly with OctoPetShop. So OctoPetShop is a sample application that we use at Octopus to demonstrate multi-tier applications. You've probably saw it being, if you've joined one of our webinars before, you've probably saw it being deployed in the past. OctoPetShop is written in .NET Core. The solution consists of 4 separate parts. You've got the Octopus Pet Shop web front end. You've got the product service, which is what the front end pulls in. So when you add a new dog or a new cat or a new jellyfish, for instance, then you can add it in to the product service. And then along with that, you also have the shopping cart service, which stores all your shopping cart information. And then lastly, it's underpinned by a database. So we're going to be using this today. The main reason is it's a really good sample application. So just want to show you, it's not smoke and mirrors. We have a repository. We have a few different branches. So you can see here, we've got the master branch, we've got the hero video fix. That's maybe alluding to something a bit later. And then you've got the hero video. So what we've then got is we've got some pipelines. You'll see here that we've got a bad, a fix, and just a normal one. They're all effectively the same. The only real difference is that just using the channels. So let's have a quick look and we can see what happened. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to run that restore first, and then do a build using .NET Core. And then you've got a test, like I was saying earlier on, test your code. Then from there, we're then publishing the web. And then we're then publishing the rest of it. So we're publishing the API, the database, and the shopping cart service. And then from there, we're then packaging this up, packaging up the database, the web, product service, and the shopping cart service. So, and then lastly, we've got push packages to Octopus. One thing just to be aware of, when you're using Azure DevOps, these steps aren't available by default. What you can do is come over to octopus.com/downloads, select the download for Azure DevOps, click get it free, and then at this point, it's going to ask you where to install it. At this point, this is when these steps become available. Then what we then have is we then have a release. So we've got our releases. Again, we've got our normal, our bad, and our fix. This will make more sense in just a moment. Click edit, and then from here we're doing something really straightforward. We've got our artifacts that are specified. We're using the continuous deployment trigger. And then lastly, within here, you've got the stage where, and what this is doing is just telling Octopus to create a release. So what we've got here is we're pushing it into a space, specifying the project, and then the project, along with some release numbers. So that's Azure DevOps. Let's nip over. What we've got is, this is Octopus. So what you've got here down the left-hand side is normally your projects, and then across the top is your environments. Projects tend to be bits of software that you ship in one go. What we've got here is what we've got. So you can see here we've got 2020 19 16.3, and you can see here that it was deployed at 7:18 p.m. That was about 50 minutes ago. So just want to show that this is not smoke and mirrors. You can see here, one of the things that I like is we've got a deployment happening. Go into the task log. When you use the deploying as a web app step, you can actually just check. There we go. I'm a big fan of this step, mostly because I always forget URLs. So we've got test. Test. And then lastly, we have production. Down here, and then there we go. So we've got production. So you can see here we've got development, everything's good. Let's close this off, and then we've got test, as you can see. And lastly, we have production. So at this point, marketing come up to us, and marketing want to put a nice new video on to the home page. And what's going to be on the home page is this beautiful video with puppies on it. and everybody's going to come in and buy all of the puppies. The puppies are going to be saved just by this one single video. So what we're going to do is, you see here that we've got a bad deployment. And what we're doing here is we're using channels and life cycles to bypass dev and test. We're mostly doing this so that you don't have to see us push it through dev and test first. But with that as well, with channels, you can have the ability to create like a different life cycle. So for instance, you have an urgent security bug fix. You don't want to go through dev, test, pre-prod, and production. You can create a channel with a life cycle that goes straight to production. I will show you that in just a moment. But here we go. We're deploying production. Let's not look at that. We're going to just wait for the manual intervention. There we go. We're going to assign to me. I have reviewed and approved. Select proceed. So whilst that's going ahead, I'm just going to jump in and talk you through the deployment process. So what we've got here is a registered deployment in Raygun. This is a step that you can actually get from the library.octopus.com. You come in and select Raygun. You see there that there's the register deployment step as well. And what you need for this is the API key and the authentication token. I would normally recommend storing these. You'll need to add bits into your code, but as long as that, what you also want to do is create it within Octopus as a sensitive variable. We've got here, there we go, you can see here, this is the PowerShell script that's running. It's adding in the API key and the authentication token. Next up, one of my favorite steps is the manual intervention step. You probably wonder why. You normally still find that some deployments will need approval. That can be from your senior leader in your organization. That could be a project manager. That could be a client. Lots of different other uses. But you normally still find that you have some approval. You may also be database administrators as well. So next up, we're stopping the web apps, just getting them ready for deployment. We're then using all the other steps are very similar. We're just specifying to deploy the web, the API, and the shopping cart service. These are all very similar. Just some things to be aware of. You probably want to configure some features and do some config transformation, etc. So there we go. All the others are the exact same. And then lastly, you're then deploying a package. So here we're just using the database. This is a Azure SQL, so this is entirely platform as a service, which is the dream going forward. And then lastly, as we had to stop something, we had to start it. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. What we can then do is we should go back to the overview. And then bad has been deployed. You would get excited about bad deployments. So here we go. Pop it back in here. And then let's just pop this in. At this point, we have our video. Everything is looking great. We've got the puppies. Yeah. It's very, very, you've got to love some puppies. And I've actually got some chocolate labs. So chocolate lab puppies. I'm ready for buy, particularly for $100. Okay, so at this point, as you can see, everything has been deployed. Come back, you see here in the overview. So marketing is happy, but suddenly someone comes up to us and says they're not happy. At this point, let's jump into Raygun and have a look.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so as we can see here, this is our recent deployments. We can see that we have made 2 deployments here on the right-hand side. All the other deployments are us testing to try and get this webinar as good as it can be for you guys. We can see here that the bad branch was deployed. It was deployed by Derek just a few moments ago. But let's kind of drill into that and see a bit more. So one of the things we like to show with our deployments is, did any errors come through? If you have crash reporting product set up, it will show you any errors that have happened since this branch was deployed. Any regressions, so did this branch create errors that were previously fixed, and any errors that are still occurring. We have a wide variety of integrations, including Bitbucket, GitHub, and GitLab. So if you have your code on these source control providers, we can take that information in, and you'll be able to see all the commits that was associated with that deployment. This is really handy if you have a bad deployment, as we kind of alluded to before, just to see exactly what commit is creating the issue. On the left-hand side here, you can see we have our sidebar with crash reporting, which is our error group, error monitoring solution, real user monitoring, which is our front-end performance, which we'll talk about later, and APM, which is our server-side performance tool. So hey, let's jump right into real user monitoring. Awesome. So here you can see the performance of your application over time. This is kind of a bird's eye view of the entire application. You can filter the date range down to kind of get a better sense of a certain time range you're looking for. As you can see here, there's a lot of data coming through here. We can see that at the moment Derek made that deployment, though, there was a huge spike. This is spike in load time, but we do offer support for more modern metrics like first paint and first contemporary paint to give you a better understanding of hey, how long did it take for the first pixel to appear on the screen, for example, just to give a better understanding of the user experience impact that your deployments have had. Further down the screen here, we have a wide variety of different modules that give you a quick insight into the user experience. Raygun is really focused on the end user, because at the end of the day, without the user, our products can't really help people, right? So we really focus on what pages these users visited and how many people viewed them. For example, here we can see that Slash, which is our home page, was viewed 942 times and had an average load time of 2.16 seconds. So of course, this is our home page, and this is something that we would want to take a look and improve on, because that's a very long time to wait. So Pano, let's have a look at how Derek's deployment did.
Cool, thanks, Krishna. So as you pointed out before, we can see that a deployment's been made, and directly afterwards we've had a spike in load time. So this graph is showing us the general application's performance over time, but we want to look into things a bit further and investigate and find out what's actually causing the problem. Because it's good to know that something's happened, but it's even better to know how to fix that, right?
Absolutely.
So what we can do within these modules is we can drill further into a page or URL. And when we do that, we're presented with the resource details page. Now this page has metrics pertaining to the particular resource. So in this case, it's our home page. We can see the views, visitors, and an overall health score for this page. So not looking too sharp at the moment. We can also see a histogram. So this is the distribution of load times for this resource. So how many of your users are experiencing certain load times. You may have seen it before in our last graph as well, but we have P90, P99, and what those are, if you don't know, they're just percentiles. So median is your 50th percentile, P90 is your 90th, P99 is your 99th percentile. So 90th percentile is the 10% of users experiencing the 10% worst load times. So further down, we have a load time breakdown. So this breaks the load time, the overall load time down into DNS, latency, server, render, and a few others. This is really good to help identify where your problem might be lying and helps you focus your development time. You can try and optimize for the server side, maybe queries or API calls. But if the majority of your load is happening within the render cycle, then you're not really going to see large performance gains there. So it's a really good tool to be able to see where you should be focusing your time. You might recognize this graph as well. So this isn't the application performance over time now. This is for this particular resource again. We can see that a deployment was made, and for this resource, the overall load time has spiked as well. So that's a good way to correlate between the two and say my application performance has decreased. And when looking at the resources of your application, you can say, well, this one decreased as well. So the problem may actually lie within this resource, or at least it's affecting this resource as well. So it helps narrow down the problem further. We also have a timeline. So this is the breakdown of asset loads. Just looking at this here, we can see a few images and they're coming in at 1 second load times. Probably some optimizations we could make there, but we can continue to investigate a bit further. Also, we track XHR calls. Our application doesn't actually have XHRs, so we won't be seeing any here, but that is something that we track, something that's really important for things like single page applications. We also have the latest, slowest requests. So this shows you what requests are coming in the most recently that are the slowest. We can see some here at 1.1 minute, 52 seconds, so quite slow. We can actually drill into these further, but I'm going to show you a really cool feature of this page now within the histogram. So within the histogram, I'm going to adjust the time range here just to narrow it down a little bit more. See if we can get, sorry, I've gone in the wrong direction here. We actually want to go closer to our deployment. Cool. So we can see the 99th percentiles coming in at 40 seconds, and that's great. But what we can do with the histogram now is actually drill into the bar, and we're presented with a list of sessions that fell within that time range. So we'll do that now for our 99th percentile. So here we can see sessions that occurred within that bucket. You can see things like the browser, operating system, location. A really good way to determine if there's a single factor causing an issue. Like, for example, here we can see all of the browser, all of the browsers used in these sessions are Chrome. So maybe there's something within Chrome that's causing that problem. But we can go even further and drill into a session. I think Krishna mentioned it before. We're very user-centric and focused on the user at Raygun. So what we see here is the session timeline. Now that's the journey that the user has taken through your application. This is really useful in seeing where users might be dropping off from your application, especially selling products. Maybe they get to your home page, then they make it to the product page and it's particularly slow, and then they don't go anywhere else. So a good way to gauge if performance is actually impacting your users. We know that users generally don't reach out when they experience problems. They just don't come back. So a really good tool to see how your users are experiencing the application, and even potentially reach out to them before they even think about coming to you with the problems. So from here, we can actually go even further now. We can see that the load time was coming in at 48 seconds for this page, but we can drill into this and see a breakdown of that request for this user. We can see the load time and again the load time breakdown, but this is for this particular request. And straight away, we can see the child assets came in at 46 seconds, suggesting there's something fishy in that timeline that maybe we can identify. And even just scrolling through, we've got an asset coming in at 46 seconds load, which is a little bit unacceptable. And it looks like puppies1.gif. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea, but that's something we should definitely take a look at and fix before we cause any more users to have a poor experience. And I did hear a rumor that someone was actually working on a fix.
Yeah, Derek, do you have something for us?
What do you know, guys? Here we go. What I've done is I've donned my developer hat. I've had a look at the GIF and I was like, hey, wait a minute. Let's make this an MP4. Let's compress it, remove some of the video, and shorten it a little bit. So at this point, we now have our fix branch. So this has all been through Azure DevOps. We've not cut any corners apart from not doing it in development and test. And then now what I'm going to do is do a deployment to production. Here we go. Again, what we're going to be doing here is we are going to be prompted to do an approval. So for that first step, so I'm going to assign to me. And at this point, I'm going to do reviewed and approved. Right, proceed. At this point, let's have a quick look at the task log actually. Whilst this is happening, it's going to register that deployment in Raygun. And then at this point, we're going to go through and do a full deployment. So that's stopping the web app, deploying the web front end, the product service API, the shopping cart service, and lastly the database. And then we should have a working deployment and hopefully a more performant web application. So guys, obviously working at Raygun, I've got to ask, what's your favorite feature of Raygun?
Oh, it's a tough one. There's quite a bit. I think maybe not so much a feature, but I really like how easy it is to set up Raygun. When I think of Raygun for web apps, it's really as easy as just taking the snippet, the script, and plugging it into your app. I really like that. But if I had to pick a single feature, we have custom timings, which unfortunately we don't have a lot of time to go through today. But if you get the chance, I definitely recommend checking it out. So we track different metrics like first paint, first contentful paint, but there's just so many different things out there that are valuable to track, and we can't really determine what is most valuable for the user or our customers. So it's a really good way to track the things that are most important to you. We've done it to track first input delay. You can use it to track other metrics. I think you can get really creative with it as well, and you can track the amount of time that users are rage clicking on elements that are blocked by threads. So it's a really, really cool tool to play around with. So that's probably my favorite feature. What about you, Krishna?
Yeah, so my favorite feature, and I'm a bit biased because I built it. My favorite feature is the deployments graph underneath the line graph. But it is genuinely my favorite feature because you can see when a deployment happened and then how that deployment impacted the overall performance of the application.
Yeah, and how it correlates.
Absolutely, yeah. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to put code out into production that's going to cause the user a bad experience. You want your code to be as good as it can be so that the user experience is crisp. So that is my favorite feature.
So what you're saying is your favorite feature is your own code.
I mean, I didn't want to put it that way, but I guess so.
It was marvelous.
What about yourself?
Obviously, Octopus, my favorite feature of Octopus is runbooks. Without a doubt, I come from an operations background. I think it's also one of the reasons why I'm bald, to be honest. It's probably pulling my hair out for all those years. But runbooks is something that we launched at the beginning of the year. And I kind of moved from ops to DevOps, although I'm not actually a fan of the term as a job title, but that's a discussion for a different time. But what you can do with runbooks is you can effectively run a script anytime. It's effectively used for like emergency operations, routine maintenance, all that sort of stuff. So in this instance, I'm a big fan of spinning up new infrastructure. So what I've got here is there's actually I've got a run book which creates the resource group in Azure, and then it then deploys the SQL server, it deploys the empty database, it then creates the app service plan, then it creates the product service web app, and then at this point, I'm then registering stuff back to Octopus as I'm going. So as you run through this, it's actually registering stuff into Octopus ready for that deployment as well. This is really great for when you want to spin up infrastructure in the cloud. You can also do it on-prem as well. Like I have a home hypervisor with 192 gig of RAM, and I've got something like 23 virtual machines, and a good few of those have actually been prepped by Octopus runbooks. You can also use it for things like Windows updates. Also, one of the ones that I like is restoring production database back to test. So code normally goes one way, right, and then data goes the other. So you normally, your code will originate from development and make its way through to production. Data then needs to move into test for you to test it, surprisingly. So what I like there is you can use runbooks to automate the restore from production to test. Obviously, there's certain tools out there that you can use. So if you're using personally identifiable information, obfuscate that or change that, randomize that. So there are other tools out there like Redgate. I've got some tools that you can use to do that. So beware there, but you can use it for a whole bunch of other stuff. It also really helps enable self-service DevOps. So like for instance, if instead of giving someone access to RDP in to restart a service, create a runbook for it, and then everything there is all within a centralized location. But yeah, runbooks, I'm in love with it because it's very ops focused. I mean, surprisingly, it's called Operation Runbooks. But yeah, you can use it for lots of other cool stuff. But yeah, like this, and as well as that, you can also use runbooks for tearing stuff down. So at the end of today's webinar, I'm going to destroy all my infrastructure, and that's just a single click. You can use triggers as well, so you can spin up dev or test for a couple of hours a day, or based on someone's going to do some testing, spin something up. So you actually get savings there, where you only, for instance, if all dev and test boxes would be online for 24/7, and you would pay for that, whereas now you only have to pay for like a margin of that. So I really do like that. Obviously, when it's on premises, it's a bit more of a pain, but yeah, that's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think anything that makes development easier is a great tool.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And one of the things that I really like is one of the things I like about Raygun is that the geography comparison. Because obviously with websites and hosting, that's what I used to do before Octopus. But with that, you can see where your traffic coming from, so you know things like where to put, maybe a CDN or additional compute as well. Maybe put some routing in place, geographic routing. So I really like that. I won't lie, and I'd like to see it, how it compares as part of the deployment as well.
Yeah, well, we'll jump in that for you.
Brilliant. So what we've got here is we've got a deployment. Hey, what do you know? It's went ahead and deployed, and it only took 2 minutes to deploy that entire production stack, which is awesome. So let's have a look. We'll have a look. What do you know? More puppies.
Yeah.
But hey, this feels like it's a little bit faster, guys, I think. And also, but still, let's just take a moment just to appreciate the puppies.
We got more time for puppies now. It's great. Yeah.
That's it. I've got two myself, so I could probably stay at this. I might download this and keep this in my private collection for all of the puppies. So at this point, let's have a look at the Raygun side of things.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Derek. So as we can see here, Derek's made the deployment, and immediately, with my favorite feature, immediately we can see that the performance of our application has indeed improved by a significant margin. We can filter out the P99 because that's quite a big jump there. So let's filter that out, and we can still see that our performance has improved.
That's a relief, isn't it?
That's a big relief.
Derek working his magic in the background.
Absolutely. So this is great, and I'm fairly confident that this has solved our issue. But let's dig deeper to the latest session just to make sure. So we can head over to the Sessions tab, and this shows you all of our sessions over the past however long our date range is. Let's really drill into one of these sessions and get an understanding of, hey, has the load time of that session really improved? So we can see here immediately the load time of our homepage was 1.84 seconds. I think
big improvement.
pretty good from what we used to have, right? So this is great, and again, this is another really good feature, the timeline. Showing exactly what parts of your application the user clicked on and when they went away. One thing I will note here is if you scroll down to the bottom, this session is actually live. So the user is on the web page right now looking at the home page. And this will actually live update when they go to different pages. This is really, really cool because let's say you have a demo coming up. One person in your team is doing the demo, and you want to make sure that nothing goes wrong during the demo. So someone else can come over to the session tab, have a look at the different sections and where the load times are not so good, and then we can also see any errors that come through. So this is another hint to our crash reporting product. But if you have crash reporting and RUM enabled, we'll correlate the errors with the pages that the user was on at what point. So that's just another something to be aware of.
And that's really powerful as well. I think we were talking about it a little bit before. You can see crashes come up as they happen, and you can take the initiative and fix those problems before the customer has even decided to leave the page, and contact them and say, hey, why don't you come and try that out again? Sorry about what happened previously. And yeah, it's just a really powerful tool. It's something we've done in the past as well.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at the performance of our homepage. Let's click into that. And as we can see here, just by looking at the timeline, hey, our puppies1.mp4, that must have been the performance improvement there, is now loading in just under 200 milliseconds. So as we can see, this has dramatically improved the performance of not only the image, so marketing's happy, but also the performance of our application. So the end user experience is still really good. So at this point, I'm really confident that that has solved our issue. But let's come over to the compare tab. This is just something cool I wanted to show. So compare allows you to compare different dimensions. This could be two separate browsers. It could be geographical locations, as well as devices and operating systems. This is really good when you want to see differences between two different dimensions, I guess, right? But for our purposes, we want to take a look at the deployments. So let's have a look at back in the deployment section. Take a look at the deployment numbers and see what we're looking at. So we're looking at 16.3 bad on the left-hand side and 16.3 fix on the right-hand side. As we can see here, we have certain performance improvements here. We can see that the performance of our application has been affected in different ways here. Keeps going down to the bottom. We can see the most requested pages that have happened between the deployments as well as the users here. And Derek's favorite part, the geo tab. What has loaded the fastest in which different countries. Let's actually go to the geo tab and show that off really quick. Awesome. So this is our geo tab. It allows you to see where these different sessions are coming through. In our example here, New Zealand, which is where we are right now, isn't loading too sharp. So we may later on need to do some investigation around why that's happening. But yeah, so that is real user monitoring. Derek, back to you.
Awesome, guys. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. So what we can see now is we have a working website. Everything's working great. At this point now, it's time to, unfortunately, start wrapping things up and moving to the Q&A side of things. So, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, guys. And what, unfortunately, my video is having some problems just now, so I am just going to remove. There we go. So we'll go into the Q&A side of things. Where what I have is a question from David. David's asking, as a general tip, is there any performance recommendations that people at Raygun generally follow when developing an application to make things nice and fast globally?
Well, I think as a general rule, you iterate through, whatever you're building, and we have different development environments set up, and we set up different applications within Raygun to track those. So a good way, or a flow that we generally take is when you deploy to an office or a beta environment, tracking the performance of that within that environment before it even touches production has been really effective for us. So that's just a general flow that we take with Raygun that enables us to ship more performant code and really allows for faster iterations without risking performance issues for your end user. Did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of kind of what we saw today with assets, a really good way to fix this is try and compress them down as much as you can. And try different file formats. I mean, of course, here in our example, we used the GIF initially, and that was quite a bad experience. It took way too long to load.
Definitely don't recommend that.
Absolutely. So then we kind of compressed that down, swapped that over to be in MP4, and that we saw much better performance with that. Another option is to use CDN, Content Delivery Network, to make sure that your assets are sent to the user wherever they are in the world as fast as possible.
Awesome. I have a question from Naldo. Can Raygun be set to alert when a site's performing outside of a range of preset parameters, so we can be aware of an issue before the user reports it or submits for a fix?
So this is something that is a highly requested feature, and it is something that is being worked on. It's not enabled currently, but it is something that we're striving towards. So it's in the works.
Yeah, watch this space.
Watch this space.
Awesome. And also, I got a question here as well. Does Raygun do application monitoring and crash reporting as well?
Yeah, so we have a crash reporting product that you may have seen in the sidebar. We also have APM, which is application performance monitoring. Krishna mentioned it before. So your server-side code, things like microservices, queries, anything server-side.
Yeah, and the great part about it is all our products are connected together. So you may find performance problem in real user monitoring. Go through, find out it's actually the server portion, drill into that, which will take you into application performance monitoring product, and then actually be able to find out it was this query that was an N+1 query, and that's why the whole pipeline was taking so long.
Yeah, and that's one benefit of Raygun actually, is that our products are integrated in one way or another. So if you're looking at crash reporting and you're looking at a particular instance of a crash, we correlate that with a session if you've got real user monitoring as well. So you can see a session that the crash occurred in, and the other way around too. If you're looking at a session, you can see the crashes come up there. So yeah, really integrated between the different products as well.
Awesome. And with that as well, we did do a webinar on it with Ollie Bannister back in March as well. So if you're interested in finding more, check out Octopus. YouTube.com/Octopus Deploy. It's also available on the Raygun YouTube as well. So definitely check that out. I've got a question here about obviously does Octopus work with GitLab CI? Yes, the answer to that is yes. It's not first class like we do with Azure DevOps, but it's something that's in the pipeline, and we should have something out that is a bit more first class, but you can use the Octo CLI along with GitLab CI to push things to Octopus. So we've got a question from Matty. Hi, Pano and Krishna. I was wondering if there were any plans on integrating commit data from Microsoft TFS in the future, in addition to GitHub, GitLab.
So I personally don't know the answer to this one. I think it's something that we'd be happy to get back to you on. Yeah, so we'll
Awesome.
definitely get back on that one.
Is there an email address that Matty can get in touch with you to find out a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So you can either email myself, so that's Pano at raygun.com, or Krishna.
Yep, that's Krishna@raygun.com, or the general support@raygun.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, chaps, that's the end of the questions, unless anyone has any more. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, well, let's time to wrap up. First, I just want to say thank you so much to Pano and Krishna for all those late nights and early mornings. Really enjoyed it. Learned a bunch about Raygun. This has been a joint production from Octopus Deploy and Raygun. And everyone for attending, thank you very much. Just want to, there is a short feedback form at the end of today's webinar that will pop up. It would be really great if you take 2 minutes. There's no, it's entirely anonymous. It's really great to provide feedback so that we know pushing forward what webinars to do. We really, really appreciate that. We do have some more webinars coming up. In 2 weeks, I'm back with Chris Harbour, who's the founder and CEO of Testery.io, where we're going to be talking about empowering your development team with automated deployments and post-deployment verification testing. There'll be a Release 2020.4 webinar on October 14th with Ryan Russo and Adam Close, where we're going to be talking about all the great stuff that's happening with Java, some Kubernetes stuff there as well. You can also check out raygun.com/webinars. You will catch that one with myself and Ollie on there as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Really enjoyed it. And Pano and Krishna, thank you for your time and all the best, everybody.
Thank you. See you later, everyone.
Thanks.